The state senator who went Republican and then said, I'm done for now.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Of course, State Senator Ed O'Neill still has a term to finish out, and there's a lot going on at the State House. And of course, he's all excited because he jumped to the GOP to become a Trump delegate. And guess what? Trump's the only one left in the whole shebang. So we'll talk to Ed coming up here momentarily. Certainly got to find out what he thinks about the debacle that was the State House yesterday. Welcome in. Nice to have you. Welcome aboard. Let's go to the rundown and let's see what is going on with the issues of the day. Well, yep, he's a lock. Here's the new phrase. Never say hashtag never Trump. Oh, believe me, there are plenty of folks who are still in the hashtag never Trump world. I got a couple in the building. One's waving at me. That person will remain nameless at this juncture. But it's going to be an interesting run here on all sorts of levels, including the emptiness that we all feel in this primary, sort of, except for those of you who are celebrating. Trump was excited last night, obviously.
Donald Trump is turning his sights to Hillary Clinton and the general election, something he made clear moments after his big victory in Indiana last night.
She will not be a great president. She will not be a good president. She will be a poor president.
Following the win, the head of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus, took to Twitter, calling for unity and hailing Trump as the party's presumptive nominee.
He kind of sounds like Sam I Am in that whole thing. She's not a good president. She will not be a good president. She'll be a terrible president. I am Sam. I like green eggs and ham. I am. Whatever. He's going to have to, what, become presidential now that the field is folding underneath him? I don't know. Who's he going to fight? What's going to happen? What kind of Donald are we going to see? It's going to be all about Hillary now, I guess, because these two booked it. Last night, Ted Cruz said, I'm all done, and I think he took some folks by surprise. The headline, of course, made it pretty clear, and we all kind of watched him do his thing. And then last night, John Kasich said, I'm still in this thing. I'm going the whole way. And then earlier today, that happened, and by 5 o'clock this afternoon, staying in Ohio, which was not his earlier plan in the day, he told us that he was all done. Here's a roundup of it all.
Ted Cruz and John Kasich have both made the decision to drop out of the presidential race.
We gave it everything we've got, but the voters chose another path.
The moves came after Donald Trump's overwhelming win in Indiana Tuesday night.
I didn't expect this. I didn't expect it. And what Ted did is really a very brave thing to do.
The reality is now apparent. Trump will likely get the majority of GOP delegates and become the party's presidential nominee. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus tweeted out that Trump will be the presumptive nominee and says it's time for the Republican Party to unite behind its new leader.
This is what today starts, which is this unification process.
That's the second time you saw that Reince Priebus was trying to get that done. Seemed to me that he may have had his fingers crossed. Do you think he might have had his fingers crossed? It's got to be the worst thing in the world for that guy as part of the Republican establishment to now be talking about rallying around Donald Trump. And the mauling, the absolute mauling that Donald Trump gave Ted Cruz, only to talk about how courageous he was last night. All of this politics and game playing is always wearisome to me. And what I don't understand for some of you out there, that you don't seem to get that Donald Trump is playing the same game that everybody else plays. And for some reason, you think it's different. Someday you'll have to explain that to me. Well, on weekdays 3 to 6 on the radio, where you can interact directly on WPRO, we have plenty to talk about, don't we? In the meantime, Bernie doesn't seem like he wants to go away. The headline here indicates that he's still thinking he's got a delicate battle that is worth fighting for. Short ditty from CBS on that.
Lost in all the drama surrounding the GOP race is the fact that Bernie Sanders pulled off the upset win over Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary.
I know all the pundits thought we were supposed to lose, but that apparently was not what the people of Indiana concluded.
The bad news for Sanders is that even after his win, Clinton is now 92% of the way towards locking up the nomination.
It's got to kill Bernie that he's winning all these states. I mean, not as many as Hillary, but he's winning these states. He wins Indiana, and he doesn't have a shot in heck. And has an 8%, well, she's 90, it's not like he has an 8% chance. She's 92% there. She's all but locked it up, unless all of a sudden the superdelegates have a whole change of heart. And how in the heck is that going to happen? I don't see it. Let me ask you this. If I had asked you, I don't know, 30 days ago, if you thought that the Republicans would be wrapped up and the Democrats would be still at least statistically undecided, would you have bought that? All the uncontested race conversation that we have had? I don't think so. Maybe y'all not work so hard in getting to the convention in July in Cleveland. It might just be a peace fest. It's not too peaceful at the State House, is it? So this hurts. This front page smarts. So let's make it smarter. Scandal again. And if you didn't catch the whole thing, here's a wrap from Eyewitness News.
Have you been interviewed by law enforcement?
You have to talk to my attorney.
The former Representative Ray Gallison goes from leading hearings on the state budget to being the focus of a police investigation.
I understand the frustration. You should be frustrated. I'm frustrated.
Gallison sent House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello this one-sentence resignation letter, citing personal reasons for his stepping down. Mattiello met with him on Sunday.
I purposefully did not get into a lot of specific detail because, quite frankly, I don't want to know the detail. That's for the authorities to know, and that's the appropriate individuals to know that.
The man who is taking Gallison's spot as chairman of the House Finance Committee is Marvin Abney. The representative for Newport and Middletown is a retired major of the U.S. Army.
What can the committee expect from your leadership going forward?
Having a meeting that's concise, that's businesslike, that allows people to, to testify, say what they need to say, question to get asked, not a whole bunch of editorializing. I'm a stickler. Welcome to the House Committee on Finance.
Only Eyewitness News was there as Abney led his first House Finance Committee hearing just hours after being appointed.
I have absolute respect for him. The day he walked into this room, he was a natural leader.
Mr. Speaker, your ability to choose natural leaders seems to be inconsistent at best. Ray Gallison, the chairman who's in all this hot water, is so far from a leader. I didn't need this scandal to tell you that, and frankly, neither did you. Now, all due respect to Representative Abney, we hope that he's competent on the job. There are indications that he very well may be. He is a bureaucrat, by the way. He's very familiar with state agencies. He worked in one Department of Education. He's not unfamiliar with the government territory. We wish him the best of luck because he's managing our $9 billion budget. Thank you very much. Something that I never figured out how Ray Gallison could get his hands around. Regardless.
Here we go again, right? Like, it's been 2 years since the Fox thing, and here we go again. And you just think that at some point people are going to vote people out of office. So he was fined by the Ethics Commission in 2007, significant amount of money, $6 grand, for not reporting income that derived from a legislative grant.
That's John Marion from Common Cause, who was excited to make that commentary. Actually, he was in here last night and was, frankly, upset, like many people who love Rhode Island are upset. Ed O'Neill, state senator, who is not going to run for re-election, is here. Talk to me about what John said. Talk to me about what the speaker said. Talk to me about what the heck happened here yesterday. Well, what do you think? By the way, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Dan. It's good to see you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
What's your take on this? I invited you for something else, like your career and an overview and ethics and all that kind of stuff, but
this popped up.
The apple cart has been upset here.
Yes, it is, and it's extremely disappointing that this again shows the need for ethics oversight in the General Assembly. It shows that we, Governor Don Carcieri, when I was first running for office, he had a comment that he would make. What's your deal? He used to say to people. And I said to him, Governor, what are you talking about? He said, well, everybody's got a deal. When you come up to the State House, they're all working something. They're working for a business, they're working for a law firm, they're trying to get something, relatives' jobs. I said, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but, I don't have any relatives that are looking for jobs. I don't, I've had my career, I've been successful. to me, it's community service. So he said, well, he said, you look around when you get up here and you just dig down in terms of what people do and what their outside interests are. Go to the fundraisers, even though, you know, because we go to each other's fundraisers, and although I haven't had one in several years. But you see who's there. That tells you a lot. When you go to a fundraiser and see who's filling the room, because, of course, there are checks that are handed over, and people, you know, that's buying influence, basically. So the governor was right. He, you know, so that kind of opened my eyes, and I keep seeing it.
Well, let me. It's interesting that you invoked that story, and I find it fascinating. Let's make sure that your intent is accomplished. You're not suggesting that Don Carcieri was a proponent of all the deal making.
Oh, absolutely not. What he was saying is he was giving me fatherly advice and saying that, you know, beware. And unfortunately, he was saying that there's a lot of deal making that goes on, and I should be sensitive. You know, I've always stayed away. I've never taken money from lobbyists, the special interest.
Well, I want to talk to you about the ethics issues in some of your unfortunately failed attempts to get some momentum on the Ethics Commission, but specifically this story from yesterday. First of all, what are you hearing up at the State House? Anything worth mentioning?
You know, I'm hearing a lot of rumor, and I don't like to repeat rumors because frequently they're wrong. I mean, there's definitely there's a major problem for Gallison, and I think that you know, it comes back to grants, not the legislative grants that you and I have talked about, which are another problem. But
well, there's an upper tier.
Upper level grants, and they're big. You know, those are, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. Well, you know, Gallison was apparently getting some significant grants, and he was apparently that was funding some of his activity or employment. So apparently,
yeah.
So you know, that's
that's been clear. I mean, I've been arguing about that forever. I mean, he's got this educational organization which he's reported to be kind of a, you know, a part-time or no-show dude at that was getting a $70,000 annual grant from the state budget to that place, you know, to place kids in college and all that. Who knows what the efficacy of that entire project has been, but that's the upper tier of the grants.
Right.
I mean, the legislative grants that I talk about, that I affectionately call the rub and tug on the radio, is the I don't have to get into why that is, but that's what I call it. Do your own math on that. That's the 500 here, the 750 here, the 5,000 here, so that people like you can go home and have that cheesy smile with the big check in the Valley Breeze and say, see how good I am and see how effective I am, right?
But I've never taken a legislative grant.
And you're one of my heroes because you've never, ever taken a legislative grant.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And nice sidestep about what's going on at the State House with Ray Gallison. Who wouldn't want to sidestep it, right? When we come back, we'll talk more about what you'd like to do with the ethics and all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, though, let me just remind you about my friends at Cumberland Kitchen and Bath Design Center. And I talk about the kitchen all the time, but, you know, there's the other part, the bath, kitchen and bath. You know, you got to figure out what your mission is. Do you want it just to be functional? Do the kids need more space? Is it a place where you want to relax and kind of chill and you know, think about your day, or something more provocative? Who knows? I mean, hey, listen, it's your home, it's your bath. Come to the Kitchen Bath Design Center. We'll do your bath based on what your lifestyle is. You need to evaluate that. But I'll tell you one thing: when you think about kitchen or bath, know that come to the Kitchen Bath Design Center. We'll do your project on time and on budget. More with that when we come back. Stay with us. You know, although he's not necessarily a statewide household name, his decision not to run again grabbed some attention. Here's the headline that caused a conversation with Ed O'Neill, who's, you know, been successful at being elected 4 times now. You've had 4 two-year terms. It seems like only yesterday I was, you know, trying to buoy your candidacy a little bit with some radio attention when you were running against then incumbent State Senate President Joe Montalbano. Does it feel like yesterday or a long time ago?
The memories are fresh, and they're fresh in a good way. I mean, you really challenged me, which is what needs to happen with candidates. Candidates need to go on shows like yours and they need to be accountable. They need to answer the questions directly, honestly, and I don't see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of candidates or incumbent people in the Senate or the House coming on the shows, and I know there's this thing about the boycott, but I think they're hiding behind that. I think they need to show some courage and come on and face
the Democratic boycott of WPRO, which is just this lingering, I got a word for it, but I'm not going to use it on television, but there's a lingering, misty, smelly cloud, that just kind of lingers. But I think your point is well made. But then again, if you don't interact, upstarts, talented and earnest upstarts like you 8 years ago can come in, get a lot of attention, and win. It's not a winning formula not to interact with forums like this on behalf of the people's interest and acumen.
I agree, and I think they're making a big mistake. The incumbents are making a big mistake, and the upstarts, the challengers, I'm sure are going to try to come in and get some airtime and talk about what they would do differently. So I think people who don't come on, and because they're not just talking to you, they're talking to thousands of people out in the state
who nothing to do with me.
Want to know what's going on and what they're doing.
You're gonna take a break, correct?
Correct.
Because
I'm supposed to be retired.
and your wife reminds you of that on a regular basis.
Yeah, she certainly does. There's a lot of late nights, and it's, even though we're only in session 6 months, it's a year-round kind of activity. So you may not be face-to-face with people all the time, but you're either on the phone or emailing or whatever, attending a lot of events. So it does. And there's some things that I've been wanting to do. I've traveled a lot when I worked for Texas Instruments, but I still haven't been to Ireland, and that's where my relatives come from.
You haven't been to the homeland?
I haven't. I want to go there with my sticks.
Well, you know what? Just go there with your right arm. Get ready to lift a couple of Guinness or some Schmittix.
That's after golf.
I made Schmittix rather. I made a promise last year when we went with family for the first time too. I'd only have a couple of beers 2 or 3 nights. Just get ready. It's a couple of pounds, and you'll never eat better, by the way. The processed food it's not over there. You're going to love we got to do an Ireland show, Lex. But anyway, you got me off track on that one. Well, good. I hope you get to Ireland.
Well,
it's a quick flight.
It is.
You're in and out. You got family over there?
Well, I've ancestors, yes.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of O'Neills in Ireland. But when you come back to politics, and you're predicting that you possibly will, are you just kind of taking a short hiatus and kind of planning a 2018 run?
I'm not planning a 2018 run as of yet. What I'm doing is I'm looking at possibilities. One of them would be General Treasurer.
Why? Mr. Magaziner, you don't think is doing a good enough job?
That's correct.
Why?
Well, the investment decisions he's making, his priorities, the performance of the funds. I mean, those funds, those are people's retirement monies. The performance determines the future safety and the future payout in terms of what they're going to get. And his focus seems to be on some sort of social agenda where he's concerned about the boards of directors of these companies, whether they have the right mix of diversity.
Right, we'll only invest unless and until it's proven that the boards of these companies are diverse enough.
Yeah, let's stick to the knitting and get the yields up. That's what And what about these funds that he's invested in? Maybe we should be getting some of the money out of them. And what's wrong with using some of the professionals right here in Rhode Island? We have Fidelity has a huge operation. Why don't we outsource some of this?
Quickly on this. You're not running yet, so we won't test you hard, but what in your experience lends you to think that you'd be a competent or excellent treasurer?
Well, I think, first of all, I have a pretty good background in terms of my own financial investments over the years, and I basically came from a 3-decker tenement with 0, and I've done fairly well. I had a great job thanks to my employment at Texas Instruments, but I've invested fairly well, and I've done okay. And
well, good. Maybe I'll get a tip by the time this show is over. Because it's not easy knowing what to do with your money.
And I think also I listen to people. You learn a lot more by listening than you do by talking. And so I owe this to a guy I used to work for at Texas Instruments. His name was Murphy. He would listen to everybody's point of view, and then he would make a decision. And I like to, and one of the managers I had on my team, when we have a problem, I would get everybody's opinion, and we would try to reach a consensus. If we didn't, then I'd make a decision for the team. But I think that when you have experts, very bright people giving you input, then it's a matter of selecting the best option. So I'm a good listener.
All right, good. When we come back, we'll talk about Ed's efforts on a couple of major legislative issues and see what the Trump delegate climate means to Rhode Island. Stay with us. So we touched base on some of the ethics issues at the top of the show, you know, read the Gallison thing. But one story that Ed and I have talked about, State Senator Ed O'Neill, is the line item veto. This headline the other day in a Randall Edgar op-ed piece kind of got my attention, and inside it was this quote attributed to the governor, where she says, "I love the line item veto. We're an outlier in the country on that. It'd make the government more efficient and more in line with the rest of the country." I almost fell over when I read that. And Ed was actually in North Carolina somewhere at his summer place or his winter place or whatever the heck it is. And you were listening in. You actually called me unsolicited to say, "Holy cow, I've been working on that. Where did she come from?"
Yes, because when we had a hearing on the bill, she didn't show up to testify, but she could have sent somebody to testify in favor of it. Nothing. It's the same on the ethics bills. Nothing from the governor, nothing, you know, nothing. Leadership is supposed to be leading, and we've got a critical time right now on ethics and the line item veto, so why don't they show up and support these bills? Let's walk the talk. It's amazing to me. So when I heard the governor was supporting the line item veto, I jumped on the phone because I said, wow, this is great, but let's really see if this is more than a talking point.
Well, only 6 states in the country don't have the line item veto. Your
Right.
point on why we need it is, and the governor's point should be, I mean, now she's, you're right, like, hello, phantom cameo support. My goodness, the office of governor, forget her personally, would be so much more effective with it, correct?
Yes, because what it does is, if you have a budget, and it's basically a good budget, but you got a couple of real stinker items in there, the governor can simply say, okay, well, I accept the budget except for these items, and I'm going to veto these items, and then, of course, the legislature can override the veto. But in many cases, they'll think real hard before they do, because that gets a lot of visibility when the governor objects to things in the budget. So it empowers the governor.
Yeah. Charlie Baker's got it. They're doing pretty well in Massachusetts. Yeah. Speaking of state politics, tell me, you're a Trump delegate, so you're feeling very good about what's happened in the last 24 hours, correct?
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think the message is for America, and more specifically Rhode Island?
Well, that's the elephant in the room, because I think the Trump victories are symptomatic of what's really going to happen this election in the fall here in Rhode Island. People are angry. I mean, if you go to, I go to Dave's Market, I go to BJ's, I go to all the stores, probably you go to Northern Rhode Island, and I run into people all the time, and they are just frustrated and angry with what's going on at the State House and with the governor. And they're paying attention, and I think this time a lot of people who never voted Republican will vote for Trump. I think a lot of people who never voted Republican are going to be voting for Republican candidates for the legislature. So I think, and you know,
well, you got to get a field to vote for before you make that prediction, right?
Well, and I'm part of that effort, because you know, I'm more than a rhino. I'm really an active Republican.
All right, so translate it, and we only have a few seconds here. You think the Trump wave will impact November in Rhode Island?
Yes.
How many seats?
It's hard to say, because we're still rounding up candidates, but we've already got a good host of candidates so far. And I think you're going to be hearing from some of them trying to get some airtime, because there are some quality candidates and some big races, Well,
they'll be able to have a seat here. Don't be a stranger. You still have a term to finish out, and we'll talk certainly before that's all over. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
State Senator Ed O'Neill. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. Tomorrow on the show, I think we're going to spend some time talking about the Superman building, which lies empty, dark in the middle of town. Tomorrow morning, there is an effort by the owners, labor leaders, some local politicians, and the like to jumpstart that conversation. And we'll be on it, and a whole bunch of other things. See you on the radio at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Good night.